The arrogant hunters. Admiral Vextar stood tall on the command bridge of the Crimson Talon, his 4 arms crossed behind his back as he gazed out at the stars. His purple skin gleamed under the ship's lighting, and his 3 eyes focused on the tactical display showing the positions of his fleet. The Krillian Empire had grown strong over the past century, conquering 23 star systems through superior military might and advanced technology. The bridge buzzed with activity as his crew prepared for their next mission. Krillian warriors moved with purpose between the control stations, their chittering language filling the air with sharp, precise commands. Each crew member stood nearly 8 feet tall, with natural armor plating covering their bodies and razor-sharp claws that could tear through most materials. Commander Zixara approached the admiral with a datapad in her lower hands. Her yellow eyes gleamed with excitement as she presented the latest intelligence reports. The Krillians had intercepted human transmissions from deep space, revealing the existence of a new species ripe for conquest. According to the intercepted communications, humans appeared to be a peaceful race spread across dozens of isolated colonies. Their technology seemed primitive compared to Krillian standards. Their ships moved slowly through space, and their weapons appeared to be simple energy-based systems that posed no threat to Krillian armor. Vextar studied the intelligence data with growing interest. The human colonies were wealthy, filled with rare minerals and advanced manufacturing facilities. Their population was scattered across many worlds, making them easy targets for piecemeal conquest. Best of all, they seemed to have no central military authority to coordinate their defense. The admiral's tactical mind began calculating the resources needed for a successful invasion. 5 ships would be more than enough to establish Krillian dominance over human space. The flagship Crimson Talon carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The escort vessels Void Render, Star Crusher, Deathwind, and Shadow Strike each packed enough weapons to level entire cities. Intelligence reports suggested that humans preferred diplomacy to warfare. They sent peaceful messages to other species, offering trade agreements and cultural exchanges. Such weakness disgusted Vextar, who believed that strength was the only language worth speaking in the galaxy. The Krillian Empire had built its reputation on swift, decisive victories. They would strike without warning, overwhelm enemy defenses, and impose their will through superior force. No species had ever successfully resisted Krillian expansion once the military made their decision to conquer. Vextar called his fleet commanders to a strategy meeting in the ship's war room. The chamber was decorated with trophies from previous conquests, including weapons taken from defeated enemies and star charts showing conquered territories. The Admiral's collection of defeated enemy flags hung from the ceiling like colorful warnings to future opponents. Captain Thixral of the Void Render expressed some concern about attacking an unknown species without proper reconnaissance. The scarred veteran suggested sending scout ships first to gather more detailed intelligence about human military capabilities. His caution came from decades of successful campaigns where preparation had saved Krillian lives. Vextar dismissed these concerns with a gesture of his upper right arm. The intelligence data clearly showed human weakness. Their ships were slow and poorly armed. Their colonies had minimal defensive installations. Their communications revealed no mention of standing military forces or advanced weapons systems. The decision was made. The Krillian strike force would cross into human space within 48 hours. They would target the human research station called New Horizon first, establishing a beachhead before moving on to more valuable colonies. The station appeared to be lightly defended and would serve as an excellent example to other human settlements. 2 days later, the Krillian fleet approached the edge of human space. Automated warning beacons broadcast messages in multiple languages, requesting that approaching vessels identify themselves and state their intentions. The messages were polite but firm, asking foreign ships to contact the nearest human diplomatic station before proceeding. Vextar ordered his communications officer to ignore the warnings. Krillian ships did not ask permission to travel through space. They took what they wanted and destroyed anyone foolish enough to resist. The warning beacons were just another sign of human weakness, proof that they relied on words instead of weapons to protect their territory. The 5 Krillian vessels crossed the invisible line marking the human border. Their sensors detected the warning beacons but found no sign of military patrols or defensive installations. Space appeared empty except for a few automated monitoring stations that posed no threat to heavily armored warships. As they penetrated deeper into human territory, the fleet's sensors began detecting civilian traffic. Human cargo ships moved slowly between planets, carrying goods and passengers on routine commercial flights. The vessels were large but appeared unarmed, designed for capacity rather than combat. Vextar felt satisfaction as he watched the peaceful human ships on his tactical display. These merchants and farmers would soon learn what it meant to resist Krillian expansion. Their cargo holds would be emptied to supply the Empire, and their crews would serve as laborers in Krillian mining operations. The research station New Horizon appeared on long-range sensors exactly where intelligence reports had predicted. The facility orbited a gas giant in the outer system, conducting scientific experiments that would soon be terminated. Dozens of human scientists and support staff worked in the station, unaware that their peaceful existence was about to end. Admiral Vextar opened a communication channel to the human station. His image appeared on screens throughout the research facility, showing his imposing figure in full Krillian battle armor. The humans who saw him stopped their work and stared in shock at the alien warrior addressing them. The station commander, a middle-aged human woman named Dr. Sarah Chen, responded to the communication request. She appeared calm despite facing an obviously hostile alien force. Her voice remained steady as she asked the Krillians to state their business in human space. Vextar delivered the standard Krillian ultimatum with practiced authority. The humans had 1 hour to surrender unconditionally and prepare for Imperial occupation. Any resistance would result in the complete destruction of their station and the death of everyone aboard. Dr. Chen's response surprised the Krillian admiral. Instead of fear or panic, she showed mild curiosity about Krillian intentions. She asked if they had proper diplomatic credentials to operate in human space and suggested they contact the nearest human embassy to discuss their concerns through proper channels. The casual dismissal of Krillian military might infuriated Vextar. No species had ever treated his ultimatums as bureaucratic inconveniences. Dr. Chen spoke to him as if he were a lost tourist rather than a conquering warrior leading 5 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy. Vextar cut the communication and ordered his weapons officers to prepare for bombardment. The research station would be destroyed as an example to other human colonies. Any survivors would be taken prisoner and transported to Krillian space as slaves. But as the fleet moved into attack position, strange malfunctions began affecting the Krillian ships. Navigation systems would freeze for several seconds before resuming normal operation. Weapon targeting computers would lock onto empty space instead of the research station. Communication arrays would produce static bursts that interfered with fleet coordination. The technical problems seemed minor at first, easily explained as normal equipment wear during a long voyage through space. But they occurred too frequently to be coincidental. Every critical system experienced glitches at precisely the worst possible moments. Commander Zixara reported that the ship's artificial intelligence was behaving erratically. The AI would respond normally to most commands, but would delay or ignore orders related to weapons and targeting systems. Diagnostic programs found no errors in the computer's hardware or software. Vextar demanded explanations from his engineering staff. Chief Engineer Mixivore ran comprehensive systems checks but found all equipment functioning within normal parameters. The ship's computers passed every diagnostic test, yet continued to malfunction during combat operations. As the Krillian fleet struggled with technical difficulties, more human ships began appearing on their sensors. These vessels seemed to materialize from empty space, suggesting advanced stealth technology that the intelligence reports had failed to detect. The new arrivals were smaller than Krillian warships but moved with unusual speed and agility. The appearance of armed human vessels contradicted everything the Krillians believed about human military capabilities. Intelligence had assured them that humans possessed no significant naval forces and relied on civilian security companies for protection. Yet the ships surrounding them displayed clear military characteristics. Dr. Chen contacted the Krillian fleet again, her voice still calm and professional. She informed Admiral Vextar that human space defense forces had been notified of the illegal border crossing. She suggested that the Krillian ships withdraw immediately to avoid further complications. The casual mention of space defense forces sent a chill through Vextar's command staff. Human intelligence had made no mention of organized military units. The intercepts had suggested a loose confederation of independent colonies with no central authority. More human ships continued to appear around the Krillian fleet. They emerged from asteroid fields and planetary shadows, revealing that human forces had been watching the invaders since they crossed the border. The Krillians realized they were no longer the hunters but had become the hunted. Admiral Vextar found himself facing a situation he had never encountered in decades of successful conquest. His supposedly superior force was surrounded by enemies who controlled the battlefield completely. The technical malfunctions affecting his ships suggested that human technology was far more advanced than anyone had suspected. As red warning lights began flashing across the bridge of the Crimson Talon, Vextar understood that the Krillian Empire had made a terrible mistake. They had entered human space expecting to find easy prey, but had instead encountered apex predators who had been patiently waiting for them to reveal their intentions. The hidden truth. The bridge of the Crimson Talon descended into controlled chaos as system failures cascaded throughout the ship. Vextar watched his tactical display flicker between accurate readings and nonsensical data. One moment it showed human ships in normal formation, the next it displayed vessels that appeared to be inside solid asteroids or moving at impossible speeds. Commander Zixara coordinated damage control efforts from her station, but every report brought worse news. The ship's primary weapons array had locked onto their own escort vessels instead of human targets. Life support systems were functioning perfectly, except for random temperature fluctuations that made certain sections uncomfortably hot or cold. Even the ship's food processors had begun producing meals with unusual flavors. Chief Engineer Mixvor climbed to the bridge from the lower decks, his purple skin darker than usual with frustration. He had spent hours examining every critical system aboard the flagship, finding sophisticated intrusions into their computer networks. The humans had not simply hacked their systems, they had rewritten core programming to make Krillian technology work against itself. Vexitar demanded to know how primitive human computers could penetrate Krillian's security protocols. The Empire's cybersecurity measures had been developed over centuries of warfare against technologically advanced civilizations. No enemy had ever gained unauthorized access to Krillian military networks. The engineer's explanation sent shockwaves through the command staff. The intrusion had not come from outside the ship but had been present in their systems since before they entered human space. Somehow, humans had gained access to Krillian networks while the fleet was still in Imperial territory, installing hidden programs that activated when they crossed the border. This revelation meant that human intelligence capabilities were far beyond anything their own scouts had detected. Not only could humans penetrate secure military networks, but they could do so without being discovered by some of the galaxy's most sophisticated detection systems. As if responding to their growing realization, a new voice joined their communication channel. Captain Elena Vasquez of the human vessel Artemis introduced herself with calm professionalism. Her ship had been shadowing the Krillian fleet since they entered human space, invisible to their sensors and immune to their weapons. Captain Vasquez appeared on the main screen, a woman of middle years with graying hair and steady eyes that suggested extensive combat experience. She wore a simple uniform with minimal decorations, projecting authority through competence rather than ceremony. Her appearance contradicted Krillian expectations of primitive human leadership. The human captain explained that Krillian communications had been monitored and recorded since they left Imperial space. Human intelligence services had intercepted their invasion plans weeks before the fleet departed, allowing adequate time to prepare appropriate responses to Krillian aggression. Vextar attempted to maintain his authority by demanding that the humans surrender to superior Krillian firepower. He reminded Captain Vasquez that 5 heavily armed warships could easily destroy any human force foolish enough to resist Imperial expansion. Captain Vasquez responded by demonstrating just how thoroughly the humans controlled the situation. With a simple command, she caused all Krillian weapons to power down simultaneously. Backup systems failed to activate, leaving the 5 warships completely defenseless against human retaliation. The psychological impact was devastating. Krillian military doctrine was built on the principle of technological superiority, backed by overwhelming force. No enemy had ever rendered their weapons useless without engaging in direct combat. The humans had neutralized the entire fleet without firing a single shot. But the demonstration was only beginning. Captain Vasquez activated her ship's external sensors, revealing the true scope of human forces in the area. What the Krillians had mistaken for a lightly defended research station was actually a major military installation disguised as a civilian facility. The asteroid field around New Horizon came alive with previously hidden vessels. Ships that had appeared to be rocks revealed themselves as heavily armed patrol boats. Space debris transformed into sensor platforms and communication relays. Even the research station itself reconfigured to show massive defensive weapons that had been concealed within its civilian exterior. Admiral Vextar stared at his tactical display in growing horror as more human ships continued to appear. Dozens became hundreds as stealth fields deactivated throughout the system. The Krillian fleet found itself surrounded by a force that outnumbered them 50-1, with technology that rendered their own weapons and defenses obsolete. Captain Vasquez allowed the Krillians time to absorb the magnitude of their miscalculation before continuing her explanation. The human officer revealed that this was not even a significant portion of human military capabilities. The forces surrounding them represented a single patrol group responsible for monitoring one small section of human space. The revelation that humans possessed hundreds of such patrol groups scattered across their territory was staggering. If each group commanded forces comparable to what they faced here, then human military strength exceeded Krillian capabilities by orders of magnitude. But Captain Vasquez was not finished with her lessons. She activated a holographic display showing the history of previous alien incursions into human space. The images revealed the fates of other aggressive species who had made the same mistake as the Krillians. The Zelkori Dominion had attempted invasion 3 years earlier, sending a battle fleet of 12 ships to claim human colonies. The entire force had vanished without a trace, leaving no wreckage or survivors to report their fate. The Dominion itself had mysteriously ceased all aggressive expansion shortly afterward. The Androxy Empire had tried a different approach, sending infiltrators to sabotage human infrastructure before launching their attack. Their operatives had been detected and captured within hours of entering human space. The Empire's leadership had received detailed recordings of their agents' interrogation, along with evidence of human countermeasures already in place throughout Androxy territory. More examples followed, each showing a different aggressive civilization that had tested human defenses and learned to regret their decision. Some had been destroyed outright, their fleets scattered and their homeworlds occupied by human forces. Others had simply disappeared from galactic affairs, their fate unknown, but their aggressive expansion permanently ended. The message was clear: humanity had been fighting and defeating alien aggressors for decades. The Krillian Empire was neither the first nor the most dangerous threat that humans had faced. They were simply the latest in a long line of predatory species that had underestimated their intended prey. Captain Vasquez explained that human civilization had developed specifically to counter threats like the Krillian Empire. Every colony was a fortress. Every civilian ship carried hidden weapons. Every research station doubled as a military outpost. Humanity had turned their entire civilization into a defensive network that could respond instantly to any threat. The sophistication of human deception became apparent as more details emerged. The intelligence reports that had convinced the Krillians to attack were not the result of poor human security. They were carefully crafted misinformation designed to make aggressive species overconfident and prone to making tactical mistakes. Human agents had been operating in Krillian space for years, feeding false information to Imperial intelligence services. They had encouraged the Empire to believe that humans were weak and divided, setting up the current confrontation on terms that favored human victory. Admiral Vextar began to understand that the Krillian Empire had not discovered human space through superior intelligence gathering. They had been guided to this moment by human manipulation, led step by step into a trap that they had helped to build through their own aggressive instincts. The realization that his entire military career had been based on fighting inferior opponents was crushing. The Krillian Empire had not conquered 23 star systems through superior ability. They had simply been fortunate enough to encounter species that were genuinely weaker than themselves. Captain Vasquez offered the Krillian fleet a choice that no previous enemy had given them. They could surrender immediately and be escorted safely out of human space, or they could attempt to fight and join the other aggressive species that had tested human resolve. The human captain made it clear that this was a one-time offer. If the Krillians chose to continue their invasion, there would be no further negotiations or warnings. Human forces would demonstrate exactly why so many other aggressive civilizations had disappeared from galactic affairs. Commander Zixara reported that similar offers were being transmitted to the other ships in the fleet. Each Krillian captain was being given the same choice: immediate withdrawal or complete destruction. The humans were allowing individual ship commanders to decide their own fate, rather than holding them responsible for their admiral's decisions. Vextar faced the most difficult decision of his military career. Krillian honor demanded that he fight to the death rather than surrender to any enemy. But Krillian wisdom suggested that survival sometimes required swallowing pride in order to serve a greater purpose. The admiral looked around his bridge at the crew members who had served under his command for years. These warriors had families in Krillian space who would never see them again if he chose death over dishonor. The Empire itself might benefit more from learning about human capabilities than from adding 5 more ships to the list of vessels that had vanished in human space. As Captain Vasquez waited patiently for his decision, Admiral Vextar began to understand that true strength was not about refusing to surrender. Sometimes the strongest choice was knowing when to retreat in order to fight another day. Or better yet, learning when not to fight at all. The price of wisdom. The journey back to Krillian space took 2 weeks, during which Admiral Vextar had plenty of time to consider the implications of his encounter with humanity. The 5 ships of his fleet limped home with damaged pride and malfunctioning systems, constant reminders of how thoroughly they had been outmatched by an enemy they had underestimated. Captain Vasquez had been true to her word. Once the Krillian fleet agreed to withdraw, human technicians had restored basic functionality to their ships while leaving clear evidence of human technological superiority. Navigation systems worked perfectly, but weapons remained offline. Communications functioned normally, but certain frequencies were blocked. Life support operated without problems, but periodic reminders appeared on every screen showing human monitoring of their progress. The message was unmistakable. The humans could have destroyed them completely, but chose mercy instead. This restraint demonstrated a level of confidence that was more intimidating than any display of firepower could have been. The Krillians were being allowed to return home because humanity wanted them to deliver a specific message to their leaders. Commander Zixera spent hours analyzing the sensor data from their encounter, trying to understand how human technology had achieved such dominance over Krillian systems. Her reports painted a picture of scientific advancement that made the Empire's achievements look primitive by comparison. The humans had not simply hacked Krillian computers, they had rewritten the fundamental operating principles of their technology. Energy weapons had been converted into communication devices. Targeting systems had become observation platforms. Even the ship's waste recycling systems had been modified to display messages in Krillian script. Chief Engineer Mixvor discovered evidence of human manufacturing techniques that violated known laws of physics. The modifications to their systems used materials that should not have been stable under normal conditions. Power sources operated with efficiency ratings that exceeded theoretical maximums. The humans had clearly mastered scientific principles that Krillian researchers had not yet discovered. As they approached Imperial space, Admiral Vextar received increasingly urgent communications from Krillian High Command. Supreme Admiral Kixthara demanded immediate reports on the status of the invasion and explanations for why the fleet was returning ahead of schedule. Vextar chose to delay his full report until he could present his findings in person. The truth about human capabilities was too important to risk being dismissed as the ravings of a defeated commander. The evidence he carried would speak more persuasively than any words he could transmit over subspace communications. The fleet arrived at the imperial capital of Krillios Prime to find the planet's orbital defenses on high alert. Intelligence services had detected unusual energy signatures following the ships, leading to fears that they were being pursued by enemy forces. The returning vessels were quarantined in the outer system until security teams could verify that they posed no threat to the homeworld. Admiral Vextar was summoned immediately to appear before the High Command Council, the supreme military authority of the Krillian Empire. The council chamber was a massive amphitheater carved from black volcanic stone, with seats for the Empire's most decorated warriors and conquerors. Supreme Admiral Kixthara presided from the central throne, her ancient battle scars telling the story of decades spent expanding imperial territory. She had personally led the conquest of 8 star systems and commanded the respect of every warrior in Krillian space. Her disapproval could end military careers, while her approval could elevate officers to positions of tremendous power. The assembled council included the commanders of every major fleet in the Empire, generals who had conquered entire planets, and intelligence directors who had orchestrated the downfall of enemy civilizations. These were beings who had never known defeat, who had built their careers on the assumption of Krillian superiority over all other species. Vextar activated the holographic displays he had prepared during the journey home. The council watched in stunned silence as recordings from the human encounter played out before them. The sophisticated human deception, The overwhelming display of force, the casual demonstration of technological superiority, all of it was documented in undeniable detail. Supreme Admiral Kixthara interrupted the presentation with explosive anger. She accused Vextar of cowardice and deception, suggesting that he had fabricated the evidence to excuse his failure to conquer human space. No alien species could possibly possess technology superior to Krillian achievements. General Thixara of the Fourth Conquest Fleet supported the Supreme Admiral's skepticism. The veteran warrior argued that the recordings must be elaborate human propaganda designed to discourage future Krillian expansion. He demanded that a proper invasion force be assembled to demonstrate imperial might against these presumptuous humans. Admiral Vexitar responded by presenting the physical evidence of human technological capabilities. He displayed components from his ship's systems that had been modified by human technicians, showing materials and manufacturing techniques that exceeded anything in the Imperial database. The Council's chief scientist, Dr. Zixoth, examined the modified components with growing amazement. Her analysis confirmed that the materials were genuine and the modifications were real. The humans had indeed demonstrated technological capabilities that the Empire could not currently match. Intelligence Director Mixtar presented his own disturbing findings from the investigation into human information warfare. His teams had discovered evidence of human infiltration throughout Imperial space, dating back several years. The aliens had been monitoring Krillian military activities and feeding carefully crafted misinformation to Imperial decision-makers. The revelation that human spies had been operating undetected in Krillian territory was shocking enough. But the Director's next discovery sent waves of fear through the Council chamber. Human agents had gained access to the Empire's most classified military databases, including fleet deployment schedules and strategic invasion plans. Dr. Zixoth's voice trembled as she reported her analysis of human territorial claims. Using data gathered from the encounter, she had calculated the minimum size of human civilization required to support the military forces they had displayed. Her estimates suggested that humanity controlled at least 200 star systems, with a total population exceeding 50 billion individuals. The implications were staggering. If these calculations were correct, then humanity was not a minor species ripe for conquest, but one of the largest civilizations in the galaxy. Their military capabilities alone would make them a formidable opponent for the combined forces of multiple empires. Supreme Admiral Kixthara struggled to accept the evidence before her. The entire foundation of Imperial expansion policy was based on the belief that Krillian technology and military doctrine were superior to any potential opponent. The idea that they had encountered a species that surpassed them in every meaningful category was almost incomprehensible. General Vixtar of the 2nd Battle Group proposed an alternative interpretation of the evidence. Perhaps the humans had assembled all their forces for this single confrontation, leaving their other territories vulnerable to attack. A massive Imperial assault might overwhelm human defenses before they could respond effectively. Admiral Vextar countered this suggestion by playing additional recordings from Captain Vasquez. The human officer had made it clear that the forces they encountered represented only a small fraction of human military capabilities. She had specifically mentioned that similar patrol groups were stationed throughout human space, suggesting a defensive network of enormous scope. The debate continued for hours as council members struggled to come to terms with the new reality. Some still advocated for immediate military action, unwilling to accept that any species could be stronger than the Krillian Empire. Others argued for caution, suggesting that further intelligence gathering was needed before making any major decisions. The turning point came when Intelligence Director Mixitar revealed his most disturbing discovery. Human agents had not only infiltrated Imperial space, they had been manipulating Krillian policy for years. The decision to target human space had not been based on genuine intelligence, but on information carefully provided by human sources. The Council realized that they had been manipulated into this confrontation by the very species they had intended to conquer. The humans had used Krillian aggressive instincts against them, turning the Empire's greatest strength into a vulnerability that could be exploited. Dr. Zixoth presented her final analysis of human strategic capabilities. Based on the evidence collected, she concluded that humanity had been preparing for galactic warfare for at least a century. Every aspect of their civilization showed signs of military planning, from their industrial capacity to their population distribution. The scientists' most chilling conclusion was that humanity had likely encountered and defeated other aggressive species before meeting the Krillians. The casual confidence displayed by Captain Vasquez suggested extensive experience dealing with alien threats. The sophisticated deception networks indicated long-term planning for multiple contingencies. Supreme Admiral Kixthara faced the most difficult decision of her career. She could order a full-scale war against humanity, risking the destruction of the Krillian Empire for the sake of military honor. Or she could swallow imperial pride and seek peaceful relations with a species that had demonstrated both superior strength and unexpected mercy. The final vote was close, but wisdom ultimately prevailed over pride. The Krillian High Command authorized immediate diplomatic contact with humanity, making them the first alien species to voluntarily establish peaceful relations with the galactic newcomers. Within months, Krillian ambassadors were negotiating trade agreements and cultural exchanges with human representatives. The Empire's aggressive expansion came to an end as leaders realized that cooperation offered more benefits than conquest. The news of Krillian submission spread throughout the galaxy like wildfire. Other aggressive civilizations quietly canceled their own expansion plans as they realized that humanity was protected by forces they could not match. The galaxy became a more peaceful place as predatory species learned to fear the consequences of unprovoked aggression. Admiral Vextar retired from military service and became the Empire's leading expert on human affairs. His detailed reports on human capabilities became required reading at military academies throughout Krillian space. His final recommendation to future generations was simple: strength without wisdom is merely violence. True power lies in knowing when not to use force. The Krillian Empire prospered under its new peaceful policies, becoming humanity's closest alien ally, and a model for other species seeking to coexist in a galaxy where the strongest predators had learned to become guardians instead of conquerors. The silent guardians of human space had taught the galaxy that mercy was not weakness, but the ultimate expression of strength.